this session of Silver Tent TV, which is about finding our voice. And Lucy mentioned, actually, it isn't about just finding the actual physical voice. It's the way we express ourselves through our art, through our writing, through dance, all those different domains. And some of us have a calling to do that. Some of us are quite happy to be what I call secret service givers. But some of us want to be visible, want to be seen, have got some message that we want to get out there. And I and a few others here have had a journey towards that. And that's why we're here to this evening or this morning, wherever you are in the world, to talk about that. So in a moment, we're going to introduce each other. We have got a member of the panel who couldn't make it tonight due to technical issues. So Gwen, if you're watching, thank you for being willing to be on the panel, and maybe some other time. So I'm not going to introduce anybody. I'm going to introduce myself, because in that measure of us stepping in and stepping up into sharing our voice, I shall go first and introduce myself, say who I am, where I am, and how I use my voice these days. And so my name's Sundy, and I've been in the Silver Tent for a year after it started. So that's probably about 5 years, I think. And I'm now a Synergy member, and that's been a big part in me practicing being visible. And the way that I use my voice now, I'm a coach, I'm a relationship coach, and I have a quite unusual niche in that I support people who've been estranged by their adult children. And I've had to shape up in terms of being confident enough to use my voice in what's quite an unusual topic area, and also something that is perhaps quite personal and difficult to talk about because of the shame attached to it. So not only am I supporting people in my work, I'm also an estranged parent myself. And so going public with that was really difficult. And being in the Silver Tent has helped me to find, and along with working with other women and the sisters, has helped me to find my voice. So I regularly get onto Facebook Lives. I write a lot. My version of being visible is my writing, and I'm still stretching into being comfortable in being on a screen and being so visible like this. So it's still a stretch. My hands are a little bit shaky. I've got a little bit nervous tummy, and yet there's something inside of me that keeps nudging me to say, hello, I'm Sundy, and this is what I do, and this is what I bring, and this is my message that I want to share. And it's that, despite all these collywobbles that I get, it's that little thing inside that keeps cheering me on. And sometimes it disappears and I bail out, but most of the time I show up and I do it, you know. And so that's me. And I forgot to say I'm in Ilkley, West Yorkshire in England. So Lucy, can I pass on to you, Lucy?
Yes, of course. I'm Lucy Jordan, and I'm a regression therapist, past life, and we're not on Facebook yet.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't know how that happened.
Hello, technology.
All that.
Yeah, I'm messaging with Steffi, and I said, "Are we on Facebook yet? We've started it." And she said,
"No,
where?" Yeah.
Take two.
I'll start again.
You must need to say something more, Sunday.
Lovely universe, isn't it? Lovely universe. Right.
Well, you are recording, so worst case, you can just put that up.
Preparing to live stream. Okay.
Here we go. I see it. So now we're live.
Yay!
All right.
Here we are. We just did a take two. Hello and welcome to Silver Tent TV. We're giggling because we've just done a big chunk and now we've got to start from scratch. So welcome to Silver Tent TV. This is where women of the Silver Tent and Silver Synergy hang out and have conversations that perhaps are a little bit different to the norm. So today we're going to be talking about finding your voice, and we've got one of us missing. Gwen was going to be on the call with us and she's had some techie issues, and so it's Lucy, Cassandra, Conchetta and myself, and we're going to be talking about finding your voice, which Lucy mentioned in a little conversation with me, which is more than just your the voice part of us. It's our art, it's our skill, it's our painting, our writing, our dancing, the stuff that we bring to the world that is perhaps our message. And all of us, well, I'm speaking for all of us, and maybe it isn't the case, but I know my journey to finding my own unique voice, my own vulnerable and authentic voice has been a journey. And in a moment, I'm going to ask us all to share about that. But I just want to introduce, well, I want to say, Lucy, will you say hi? And because we're co-hosting together on this panel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lucy Jordan. Yes, Sunday, are you going to say more about yourself?
I will, yeah. I just wanted to introduce you as the other panelists. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for being on the panel. And yeah, so we have to introduce ourselves, don't we? Because we have to use our voice. So I'll go first, and then the others will join in. And so, yeah, my name's Sunday. I live in Ilkley, West Yorkshire in England. And the way that I use my voice is in my work is that I'm a relationship coach, and I have a niche of adult-child estrangement. So I work with and serve, my service is all around supporting parents through the painful process of being estranged by their adult children. So with a topic like that, I couldn't sort of hide behind it. I had to start to talk about the subject area, which was really difficult at first, especially as it was my own experience and those barriers of getting over talking about my own experience. And, being a member of the Silver Tent and Silver Synergy has helped me enormously to practice doing Facebook Lives and my writings and being cheered on by the support of the Silver Tent and Francesca and crew and everybody. So it's been an interesting journey. There's parts of me that, I'm still a bit nervous when I get on here, and yet there's a little part in me that says, come on, Sunday, like show yourself, because I've got a message, and I'm sure that many of us have got this little nudge inside that says, come on, do a Facebook Live, or, write something on Facebook. And when I first started to do that, I felt really vulnerable. And yet, like I say, I've got this little thing inside me that keeps cheering me on. So, yeah, if I can pass, that's me. So if I can pass on to Lucy.
Well, hi, everybody. And you can see that I'm looking down a lot. I'm just monitoring the Facebook, and I see that I think we've only just gone live. Okay, so I'm Lucy Jordan, and I'm a spiritual regression therapist, past life healer, animal communicator, artist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm here, Sunday invited me here, and it's quite extraordinary because only recently I've realized that I'm using my voice when I facilitate groups, which I've only really started doing, for guided journeys, regression journeys. And of course, when I'm doing the regression therapy, hypnotherapy, I'm using my voice. But that's something that really hasn't come easy to me at all, from a family dynamic of being told to shut up and I got nothing worth saying, and repeating that in social situations where I don't feel confident enough to speak up and say something, or if I do, somehow I get talked over, or something external will happen that takes everybody's attention. So it's quite extraordinary that it seems to me that the medicine is in the poison. The gift is in our greatest wound. And I'm been told many times that my voice as a hypnotherapist, as a therapist, as a guided, taking guided journeys is very soothing and very safe and very nice to listen to. So yeah, it's quite how paradoxical is that? And at the same time, Sunday, as you were saying, that our voices is not only our spoken voice, but actually our spoken voice is the most naked form of expressing ourselves. So we can hide behind an art exhibition or a musical instrument or a book, but we can't hide when we're speaking. Maybe if you know, just a narrating or something, but, you know, to get up in front of people and speak your truth as well, your how you really feel, which is our vulnerability. That's been a hell of a journey for me, and it's still unfolding. Yeah, so that's me. Conchetta, would you like to go?
Yes, my name is Conchetta Antonelli, and at the present I live in Bordeaux, France, or just north of Bordeaux, France, and I'm an American expat. Have been for the last 17 years. My journey with my voice is very fascinating. When Sunday put out the call for this, it was as if I was being pulled into the computer to say yes. And I took a moment to look back at my life. I sort of did a voice life review and was fascinated about the way it came and went. And at the moment, as I think about how am I using my voice, I mean, I'm an artist, and I'm also writing a book, and yet I have found that I am the quietest that I probably have ever been. In that, there's an internal awareness of my voice, and I have begun to understand how it isn't always necessary to speak out loud. And so that's an interesting place for someone who's been an extrovert and a leader. I call myself a groupologist because starting at 15 in high school, I was joining groups, I was creating groups, and all the way up to now, I'm involved in groups, and they fascinate me. And so it is an interesting place to be at this moment, that part of my authenticity is to be quiet. So that's me, and I'm excited for what we're going to talk about next.
Thank you, Conchetta. Cassandra, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to, and I'm taking so much already from your introductions and what's being shared. And I'm Cassandra Eve. People sometimes know me under the name Whole Woman. And using my voice, well, Conchetta, I was just really, identifying with what you were saying about your voice going into silence. Because actually, silence has been a thread that's been with me through my whole life, both in a negative way and in a healthy way. And it's so restorative to actually go into that space as well. So I just really want to honor that, because part of becoming a crone, an elder, a wise elder for me, is about recognizing when to be hands off, and there's many, many myths around that. When to be more hands off, to step back, but notice, watch and notice, and when to be quiet as well, because there's a profundity to be found in that. And yet my journey with silence has been very, very painful, because I came from a family where me being a very sensitive child, I was very, very aware of the emotional atmosphere the whole time, and yet nothing was spoken. So there was this split in terms of what was happening on the surface and what was going on underneath, which is what I was connecting to. And so my life, really my journey from through my childhood, through my teens, when I became a silent rebel. So I recognized then in my reflection on this call that my speaking up was actually acting. It's like I couldn't speak. There wasn't the space in me to speak, and I didn't have the capacity to speak up then. but I acted on behalf of my own truth. And that's when it began, really, was this quest between that calling in us as human beings, or the calling in myself for authenticity and truth, which was really, really powerful. And yet also for love, which is equally powerful, and that sense of belonging. And how my journey has been about how do we find both? How do we belong to both, to our desire and our capacity for love, and yet also what is true for us as individuals, which sometimes can create a challenge in our belonging, in our relationships. So I work predominantly with women. I facilitate retreats, long retreats in Europe and shorter retreats online, with soul coaching as well, and also astrology. And for me, astrology is a profound tool for self-knowing. So just a little story there in terms of my history and how it works in so many different frequencies. I was very good at languages at school. My parents wanted me to be a translator. Long story short, that didn't happen. But later, as I evolved and woke up and went into spiritual community and I woke more consciously, I discovered I actually am a translator, but a translator of universal energy. That's what's in my chart. So we can take these things on many, many levels, these speaking up, this finding our voice, using our self-expression in so many different ways. And my perspective on that is that we're constantly evolving in it too. And that for me is magic. It's the mystery. It really lights me up.
Thank you, Cassandra. Yeah. So we've got some questions just to sort of keep us on the thread of all of this. And we've touched on childhood, and I wondered if we wanted to expand a little bit deeper. Like, do you remember your voice as a child, how you used your voice as a child? And what were the things that you did or didn't do with your voice? And yeah, so who would like to answer to that? Kick us off with that one.
I can go.
Yeah, Conchita.
I came in as quite an empathic and sensitive child, and initially I was speaking up about things just like you, Cassandra. I could feel what was going on in the house and no one was saying anything about it. And there was a huge amount of tension because, one, I was unexpected. Two, my mother was an extremely anxious mother in that her mother had not prepared her for motherhood. And so she didn't feel like she had a voice either. So I was picking up on all that. And it was my father who was the one with the big voice. And I remember somewhere around the age of 5 that the way I started doing art, and that became my voice, because the only one really in the house who got to say much of anything was my father. And so there was my voice. Thank goodness I had that. Because, and I have a photo of myself when we went to the beach. Small little story, but this was another way. This is the point at which I began to lose my speaking voice, in that, and not really, but we went to the beach and it was time to leave, and we lived in Miami, and so my mother said, put your shoes on. I didn't want to put my shoes on. Now it's 90 degrees in the shade in Miami, of course. I wasn't going to put my shoes on. No, that was my voice. No. Well, of course, I walk across the hot sand and it's absolutely horrible. And I would get to the parking lot, and then I have this photo of me. It still makes me laugh. This is the face I was standing there. They were laughing their heads off, taking pictures of me, and so I learned to pout. Yeah, that's how I use my voices. That's all we could do. That's all I was allowed to do, because anger was met with with, unfortunately, you've got to shut that down.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of, there's some other things, but I did find my voice again. But from that point on, it was art. And I got a lot of, in school, I got a lot of recognition for my art. So that's my experience.
Mm.
Mm. Well, Sunday and I have a similar experience, that we're the youngest of big families, and also a big gap between us and the next sibling, right, Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting how we're two different characters, but there are quite similarities in that experience that we had. And like Cassandra and Concetta, you've said, came in very sensitive, and being the only girl, 3 brothers much older than me. My dad was very silent because he was usually drunk. He was one of these silent drunks, not a loud shouty drunk. But my mum and my brothers kind of made up for that, and I learned to just sit and listen, because whenever I kind of joined in, of course I was too young to truly understand what all the conversation was about. So I would join in, and they'd all look at me and like, yeah, anyway, blah 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 blah. So I kind of learned to shut up, and even incredibly, even only last year, one of my brothers told me to shut up, Lucy, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And it brought something to a head for me. You know, I'm 57, and all my life I've struggled with this inability to speak in a group, or to, if I was to speak, I'd have to speak so fast before somebody told me to shut up, or just ignored me and everyone carried on talking, which is what happened in my childhood. That when people do actually stop and listen, I'm kind of like a rabbit in the headlights, like babbling away. So it had a huge effect on me, my childhood, and my ability to speak and be heard and feel like I'm being heard, and feel like I had a right to be heard. And certainly in the last few years, there have been certain things going on, you know, I got to be careful what I say here, certain things going on in the world that I was truly shocked and felt I truly needed to speak out about. And usually this is on Facebook and even in person. And again, shut down. It's like the cancel culture, the way we have been conditioned recently to treat each other when somebody has an opposing view is to shut that person down, laugh at them, tell them they're stupid, you know, be really, really quite rude. And somehow this galvanized me. I also had an experience with a past life which empowered me. I got my power back, but it galvanized me to speak up more. But interestingly, over the last year or two, like you were saying, Cassandra and Concetta, I've also learned to zip it in certain moments. You know, there are moments when it's better just to zip it. Yeah, that's been a bit of a journey. But now I feel that I think it's time to speak up. And I would say, Cassandra, that astrologically, you know, I'm an armchair astrologer, that is really the theme right now. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially over this summer, particularly. I mean, it's a strong theme for years, but over this summer in particular, allowing what I call the dark feminine. So those things that aren't acceptable, you know, allowing those to be delivered. But it's interesting that she's in partnership with the loving feminine. So you know, my perspective on this is that we are learning to deliver the unpalatable truths in ways of the heart.
Right, nicely put. Yeah.
Whereas often I know in the past when I have when I've spoken something that's true, that's rocked the boat, there's been repercussions to that, you know. Either it's not been accepted, and then I start to feel shame, you know, oh, you shouldn't have spoken, blah, 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 all that stuff, which is something that I've had to learn to love and let go in myself. Or I feel at odds with myself because I've done it, you know, my mouth is opened and something's come out and I've been as shocked as everyone else around me. But there's an astrological archetype, feminine archetype, Iris, who is that. She's the one who speaks the unpalatable truth.
Mm.
So yeah, it's like we need to, I feel, find the loving courage to know when to speak or to allow ourselves to speak, and to also allow ourselves to be silent. And
Yeah.
it's an ongoing evolution.
I think you're right. I think that's been very much my journey, because if I track back to my childhood, similar to Lucy, big family, lots of noise, youngest, them having adult conversations and me like 6 or 7, never getting a look in. Well, never's probably an exaggeration. And so I learned, instead of being quiet, I got really noisy and I got really dramatic, and I would say things to shock. So that was the only way I ever got attention. So when I look back at that childhood, I was raised on a farm as well. So one of the things that I didn't realize until just recently was that I really missed shouting at the top of my voice for the cows to come in, because I used to go up, I'd be about 6, 7, 8, and I was sent up the lane. The cows would all be there in the fields, but there would be some that needed shouting, and I used to shout, come on, at the top of my lungs. So every day I was getting this lung workout. And I went recently to a farm and I said, in a big field, in a big space, and I said, can I just really shout? And she said, yeah, go for it. So I had a go of really shouting. So I suppose I was trained to be somebody who would speak the unpalatable truth, but probably not in the ways that I've recently discovered work very well, because it tended to alienate and close people down. And sometimes I can still do it, but now there's a consciousness to it, because some people, it sort of like there is a role for being really full on at times. And I have got sort of the courage to do that, because it isn't my desire to have people like taking pot shots at me. And yet, you know, I probably am called to do that and to have the courage to do that. And it's taken me such a long time to not carry shame and not to want to be one of those. At times I wanted to be a love and light person and have crystals and angels and fairies, and why can't I be like that person? So it's taken me ages to be comfortable being a bit of a pot stirrer, somebody who will, and of course that has helped me enormously in this difficult topic that I've had to talk about. And I really at this point want to put my hands up to the women and celebrate the women who have to talk about domestic violence, sexual abuse, those things that I think, how the hell do you get round your head and your voice around talking, especially if you've been subjected to that and it's your own experience. And I think that actually has to be your own experience to have some sort of validity to it. And something I picked up with you, what you're saying, Conchetta, that it was around something you said about recognition. You know, you got some recognition for your art.
Yes.
And that then I was going down this thought path of what and I know you've got a question. I'm just jumping in here with this one.
Okay.
So how important is it for us to have external validation, support, recognition, for us to actually really step into our mission and our voice and our art? And, you know, especially if we've got, I know some people are working with light language and all sorts of what I would call really different concepts, and you know, the celestial beings, and there's so much. And you know, especially if you've got those, you know, being cheered on in your mission, in your voice, you know, I'd love to hear who, you know, how do you want to share around, where did your validation, where did your, I suppose your external permission to go for it come from? Or has it been a sole job?
Wow. It's shifted over time for me. In my other life, I was in corporate America for over 25 years in human resources. So I had to use my voice, and it was a choice that I had made, and I was good at it. There was these three things that happened. But it was certainly a battle from this standpoint of, especially in corporate America, there's a certain way of using your voice in order to get the validation and the recognition. And I fought long and hard to have some of that. And now it's less important, because just as you were saying about the journey internally, that's where I needed to validate myself even more. But I spent the better part of my life going out there. I needed the reflection back to me to let me know, because having it shut down and told, this is your place. And I'm from my father, I'm a first generation Italian American. My father immigrated to have the American dream. And I believe there's a certain amount of drive that comes with an immigrant, being a child of an immigrant, in the sense that, of course, he had a lot of drive to achieve his goals, I was the firstborn, and I always identified with, oh, I have to be that way to be heard and to be understood. And so, as I said, it was a lot more important externally, and that might explain a little bit more of, and excuse me, I have all these thoughts that have come up about this, and I got a lot of recognition in my work, and you know, I continue to be validated externally in one of the associations I belong to. I can see that this is what I'm good at, and that people respond to that. But I also, at this point, realize that it's okay if they don't. It does light me up when I'm doing what I'm doing, and I get in front of people and I forget the world. It's the most extraordinary thing. I can be in the worst mood, and I step on stage. I'm a little bit like, what is it, Fosse? It's showtime. And when it happens, something clicks in me, and there I go. And that's the best validation for me now, is when click, and there I go. So I hope that answered what you were asking.
Yeah. Anybody else on the external? Did you need that to find it in yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to share something about that, because as I was reflecting around this journey with speaking up and my voice and my creative self-expression, I saw, for me, it was like I had to go beyond my human wounding, which was very strong in terms of a woman's experience. So you mentioned abuse and violence, Cindy, which was something I experienced as a woman. And then it was like, at some point, it's still a mystery to me what happens. It must be grace, you know, it must be grace. It's divine intervention when we wake up and we realize there's something other than this. It was like I had to follow that thread, and it was a very fine thread of, I know it now to be connecting with my being. So for me, the validation out there came from my spiritual journey. It came from spirit. It came from my spiritual teachers and my spiritual community. I was in spiritual community for over 20 years in total. Even there, the shadows of the old wounding were playing out. But in terms of my relationship to myself, it was like I had to leave the wounded woman in order to go and find something, my being, that I could trust fully, absolutely, with everything in me, to come back in to integrate the two. And that's the ongoing journey, is the journey of embodiment. And I can say hand on heart that I trust that aspect of myself with my life, absolutely with my life. Now, that was my journey with validation, was to find it actually within myself. And it did come in the mirror of my spiritual teachers as well, but also the challenges come through them without a shadow of a doubt. For other people, that validation, that journey to validation may come through a partner, it might come through healing work or therapy or whatever. It can come in through animals, it can come in so many different ways. And that's what I love about us, that, you know, we're all wounded, but the way that we come to integration, into healing, is so unique for each one of us. Isn't this just magical, really, isn't it? There's so much I can say about that.
Well, I had to make myself go on stage.
I'd like to have watched that.
I had a yen to be online art teacher about 9 years ago as a way to earn some money and do my art at the same time. But I was so terrified of the thought of standing up in front of a bunch of people in person or online that I realized I really need to do something about this absolute terror of being visible and speaking and being maybe even a leader, you know, being like having being a facilitator of some kind. And so locally there's an amateur dramatic society, which every year they put on some kind of show, and I signed up to be in that show that year, and I was really splashed in the deep end. Not only did I have to sing, but I had to dance at the same time. And I have absolutely no coordination. Yeah, I can do free dancing, no problem. But if I could do I'm rubbish at aerobics, forget it, or any kind of routine dance. But I did both with 3 other women, thank God, not on my own. But the week running up to the first night, I was having dreams of being on death row, waiting my execution. I was that scared. But the buzz afterwards, and I think we did a run of 5 or 6 nights or something. The camaraderie of the company and the buzz afterwards was just amazing. And since then I joined a choir as well here, and we did performances. And of course, all together you're singing. Which is a choir is just the most beautiful experience. You have the breathing, you have this community singing as well. And then I went on to, I was in a band, and I was the singer and the flute player, and they made me the front woman as well, because they're all too shy to speak to the audience. And again, you know, it was absolutely terrifying, but I did it. Something drove me it was like a challenge, I suppose, to do it. And I got validation from all of that, but I also got some criticism. And of course, the criticism usually comes from the cheap seats, as I call them, you know, the people that sit there throwing peanuts because they haven't got the courage to get up on stage and expose themselves to an audience. So they throw peanuts. But maybe they were valid. I'm an amateur, a total amateur. You know, I'm not a professional singer or musician or actor or anything, or dancer, far from it. But the criticism cut deeper than the validation, because of course deep inside there was still a lot of shame and a lot of shame, really, isn't it? It's like the imposter syndrome. Who are you? The mirror. Who are you to get up on stage and speak or sing or dance? Or, you know, I think our greatest critic is ourselves.
Mm.
And that's a shame, because we've all got something really valuable to share. We've all got a life story. We've all got gifts and talents.
Yep.
Maybe some of us don't know what they are, or we haven't uncovered all of them, but you know, the voice, it's naked. It's you cannot hide.
something you've just said is really, you know, that force within me, you know. So I was thinking, some people, my shyness has come through, da-da, I'm here, look at me, you know, that's overcoming my shyness. And that I've only just recently learned that, you know, that I'm noisy because I want to connect, I want to feel safe, I want, you know, and my way was to be a force. And of course, people went, blooming heck, who's this person? So over the years, I've had to tame myself down. And that's not to say that, you know, sometimes if I have to get on a stage, which is very rare, and I would like to do that, but sometimes I have a feeling that it's possibly only my legs that want to go. I heard that said and I thought it was lovely. I don't want to go on, but there's something that makes my legs move towards the stage and I get on it. And yeah, it's fascinating. Anyway, I've butted in there. I think you've got a question, have you, Lucy? Did you have a question?
I did not right now. Actually, yeah, there was a question. I was wondering, what do you think? What is the cost, personal, maybe personal and collective even, the cost of not speaking up, not speaking our truth, expressing our authentic selves?
I would say what we have now in our culture is the cost of that, in a nutshell.
Can you expand on that?
In terms of, we're living in an inauthentic culture, a culture that lacks caretaking for the things that are really important. I've written 3 books, 2 of which are about women's journey and how we have lost our voices. But there are archetypes in mythology that we can connect in with, that have that power, that we know, that we recognize. And it is time for us to rediscover those aspects of ourselves that we've, for whatever reason, we've moved away from them. We may have had them taken from us, but I don't like to look at it from that victim perspective. We've also agreed, you know, to become comfortable in a way of material comfort in the Western world as women. Generalization, I know, but speaking up, speaking truth sometimes is not comfortable, but there's a cost when we don't. So we have to recognize within ourselves, do I want to belong to my comfort more than I want to belong to the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to pay the price of not rocking the boat, which is to be half asleep? Yeah. I remember once in a retreat, and I know someone who's watching this live will laugh because she was on a retreat, when something came through me and this voice in me said, when are you going to wake up? And this woman just stood up. She said the energy in her just stood up. And it's that kind of, it's a demand, but it's a loving demand. It's like, why would we not speak up? Why would we not? It kind of mystifies me in terms of my own journey and the journey of women as a collective. Why would we not speak up? And I suppose the answer is fear.
I was going to say that if I look back on what kept me from speaking up, it was fear of loss, fear. I mean, we've covered some of these things: shame, rejection, all of these things. And in a way, I also spoke up too much out of the same thing. There was sometimes I would preempt. I've noticed this in relationship. I would tell the person. It's so funny to think about this. I would tell them what I thought they were thinking, so I wouldn't have to hear what they were really thinking. So it's a fascinating thing to look at how, okay, I'm going to prevent any kind of thing from happening to me. And of course, what that has created also is when you don't let in anything, you can't, it's difficult to let love in, to feel loved. And so to me, that's also one of the risks that we take if we don't speak up. Because some of that, what you were saying is about also telling others how I feel in the moment.
Mm.
Like, you're not allowed to treat me that way because you've crossed a boundary for me, or, ow, I feel hurt when you say it. And I learned, boy, and it's just more recently, and for heaven's sakes, I'm a trained psychotherapist, and I'm just now learning how much I shut my heart off. Nope. And there's the risk, is that we don't feel it. We don't take in that love, that satisfaction, that validation that we're looking for out there. But if I'm walking around like this all the time, of course I'm not going to be able to bring that in here.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's, and I want to just circle back, just, it's the same line, but Cassandra, when you were talking about our wounds, I've just recently realized where my Chiron is. And it's hilarious. It makes me laugh so much. It has helped me so much to work through this. My Chiron is in Aquarius, and my issue is what Groucho Marx says: I wouldn't want to belong to a group that would have me as a member. And so I'm a groupologist. I've spent all this time trying to teaching others how to belong to a group, and yet I have felt outside of groups. And it's been delightful just suddenly to realize, oh, it's me that's keeping me outside the group, not the group keeping me out. It's fascinating. So there's another, for me, another reason why it's important that we speak up in some form or fashion, whether it's our voice, it's our writing, whatever, or just simply, it's been so freeing to just be willing to tell my husband when he does something, not because he's done it, but more, here's what I'm experiencing in this moment when you do X, Y, Z. And anyway, I need to, someone else's turn now.
I'll go. I've got a washing machine gently spinning in the back. Yeah, I think for me, the cost to me is that I feel like I've let myself down. You know, there's a sort of sinking feeling when I had the thought to say something, whether it be a compliment or stood up for somebody else, or I have a sort of sinking feeling. There's this. So I suppose fulfillment is strong in me. You know, I've got that sense that I want to go with every little bit wrung out of me, you know, a life well used, you know, that there's a beautiful quote somewhere. I can't remember. Life is no brief candle to me. I can't remember who said it, but I want to go out feeling that I've been thoroughly used and of service. And there's a sort of a thing in me, you know, and I get a bit stuck with my ego and stuff. And I don't know whether it's egotistical or I want to be part of the solution. You know, we are in a mess, you know, and I want to be part of the solution. And I don't expect to conquer everything. And I have got a small and significant part to play in all of that. You know, I have got a voice. And I suppose the cost for women in general is that we have got some wisdom. Now we're getting into elderhood. We've had loads of life experiences. I was in a sharing circle today, and I was one of the eldest, you know, and the women were sharing their stuff that I'd experienced 20, 30, 40 years ago. That sounds dreadful to say that. And I could, like, when we were all, I don't know if we ever we're all mixed together, multi-generational, you know, where the elders could actually say, do you know what, this is what I did when that was going on for me. And, you know, and it just, I do feel like I'm a resource, you know. And my family situation is that I don't have my immediate offspring, my children around to. So I'm a bit of a frustrated mother and grandmother, really. Come here, let me tell you what I want to tell you. But, you know, not everybody wants it. And yet at least I've got that to offer, you know, and there are times when, you know, I have stood up for somebody who was being quite rude in a coffee queue, you know, and somebody was being rude to the barista in Nero's. And it was out of my mouth. And I just said, that's not very kind, that. and everybody went quiet. But I've realized as an older woman, you can get away with quite a bit, actually. You know, excuse me, young man, is one of my favorite sayings. And I'm cheeky, so I get away with quite a bit, you know. It's sort of like I've got a fun side to me, which sort of playful side, which I think gets me out of hot water sometimes.
It's, yeah, it's not what you say, it's the way that you say it.
We're singing.
Kind of.
How about you, Lucy? How about you? What's the cost to you? What's the cost do you see?
Yeah. I think the overall, the main feeling is like a pressure valve, like a pressure cooker, a pressure cooker building up until it's especially in relationships. You know, as you're saying, Concetta, it's much better to speak out early on when there's some not so nice things going on in friendships, in close relationships. But that's a skill that we generally don't learn. You know, we might be born with it, or it might be demonstrated to us if we're lucky. But certainly my family, between my mother and father, it was mostly arguments most of the time. My dad was silent, drinking, and my mum would just take as much as she could, and then she'd explode. It was this cycle of sulking, rouse, nice for a bit. So I didn't learn how to communicate my difficult feelings in my family, and it's a skill I'm having to learn. It doesn't come easy, and I think that's, you know, I think especially women, we have this kind of this codependency. That's not a label that but you know, it's a kind of a label that covers all of this inability to say our truth and say what we need, our needs and our desires to people, and it's covered up with guilt and shame and all of that stuff. Which I've plowed through in my life, but I see it a lot, really. I see it a lot, and it comes from an authority as well. You know, as a human collective, we have our masters and our control system over us, and sometimes we're powerless to speak up and say, hey, you know, enough. No, you don't have the right to do that, or treat us in this way. You know, and collectively, it's an individual thing and a collective thing, to feel that we have a right and we have the sovereignty to say how we feel, and to say no, enough. Here's the line. No more. Don't cross that line. Yes, it's a journey. Yeah.
Well, as we coming to the end, I wondered what helps. What helps you?
Oh, for me, staying in my heart, and what helps me to stay in my heart is, well, one, my spiritual practices, definitely, because they feed that in me, that capacity to stay in my heart, along with nature, feeds that capacity in me, but also my capacity for self-love, which has grown enormously. And so, you know, sometimes when I do stuff it up or whatever, you know, it's all okay, you know, there's always a way through. And if there isn't and something has to end, then that's so be it, you know. But really it is that staying connected to my heart, because we can't fix it with our head, and we can't force it with our will, much as we might want to. It's really, for me, love is the only answer. And sometimes love is fierce, sometimes love is kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And part of the way I do that is with consistent practices, and that includes meditation. It includes, like, I'll use this word, but it's there's no other word for me to use except mindfulness, is just continuously staying grounded in here. And as you say, Cassandra, even if I pop out or I pop off, sometimes it's okay. It is what it is. And that's been the most helpful. And to, you know, I think about what one of the things you asked was, you know, what, I guess it's kind of like what keeps you using your voice, or that's how I interpreted it. And there's always been something pulling me forward. And if I can stay attentive to that, and when it's not, if it's not, I remember someone telling me once, if it's not a yes, if you hesitate, it means a no, not yet. And so if I can stay listening to that and curious about other options and remembering, I think I'm saying the same thing that Cassandra said, is that there's always a solution. It just may not be apparent right at the moment. But I think what helps me too is remembering to breathe. It's so easy to forget that. Take a breath. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's ongoing making friends with my inner murderer. I don't just have an inner critic, I have an inner murderer.
Yeah, it can be that strong sometimes.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And making friends and just saying, hey, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm an okay person. I'm a decent person. I have things to say and I have things to share. And I must say that the Silver Tent and Synergy and all the beautiful, beautiful, supportive women in here have really, and I'm one to kind of hide, you know, and some of them, you know who you are, have pushed me forward again and again. And I have so much gratitude to you all for your support. It's a really beautiful thing. That's been a big help.
Can vouch for that.
Yeah.
And you're reminding me of something else, excuse me, Lucy, is laughter.
Oh yes, laughter.
And just recently,
that.
Exactly. Sometimes it is a matter of just laughing at myself or finding, I find just listening to some comedians who point out the absurdities in life helps me just get out of my head sometimes. And so, yeah, I want to say that I appreciate
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, to point at yourself when you get so serious and like, you point at yourself and laugh, and it's like, poof, it just
exactly.
It's magic.
Yeah, that's something I have thoroughly enjoyed in where I can be in my too muchness, because that's my inner critic. Don't be too big, don't be too noisy. I wasn't called Gobby Gilchrist at school for nothing. So big mouth, big teeth, big voice, you know. And so improv, I found improv a few years ago, and that's where I can be in my absolute fullness. And if you haven't done improvisation, it's lovely, because I realized I was participating without realize I was participating, you know. And there's some drama psychotherapy things that I went on as well, where the guy was so skillful at getting the shyest one of us. And you could see she was actually presenting. It worked and staged it so that she was actually presenting and leading. And you saw that moment where she went, oh my God, what's happened to me? And that, I remember it was Nicola, her name was, and that transformed her life, you know, because she had a cellular experience of actually being on stage, being in leadership, being the center of attention without having to shoehorn herself to get there. And I think they're wonderful when I've had those one-off experiences where I think, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me, you know, and how I got here, and I'm not in that self-consciousness. I'm being me, you know, I'm being Sunday, and it seems to go down well. It's when I get into my head that it all goes a bit. Can you say tits up? Yeah, I'm sure you can if with sex, you know, the other one that we did.
No, say it.
That's when it goes tits up, when I'm too in my head and planning, and so I was umming and ahhing about the structure and the what we should say here today and how it should weave in and out, and then I caught myself and I stop it, because it's just going to flow. The universe is going to be with us. We're going to have a lovely conversation. You don't need to put everything in place and have everything. I mean, we had loads of questions, and I think we've asked 2 of them, you know, so
I've forgotten them.
yeah. You mean you didn't bring them with you?
Oh, no, I did that. I did that. I wrote them all down before we got started.
I read them and then forgot them.
So Conchetta, is the one that's jumping out at you that we need to speak to in these
Oh,
last few minutes? I know we've run over a little bit, but we were late starting, so if you're all right time-wise, everybody, we'll
No,
just...
I think we actually covered just about all of them. There's one more specific, so maybe we've covered this though. What keeps us using our voice?
Yeah, I think
we've
spoken
covered
about that.
Yeah, so that's the only
I
one.
think-
Yeah, I think we
Lucy,
covered all of them.
I think you have, but Lucy, you had a lovely one.
I have one question, which a short answer, or a long answer, but you know, if you could go back to your younger self, what would you say to her?
You are loved.
No,
You are loved.
beautiful.
Don't try so hard. Not necessary.
I don't know.
Yeah, a whole list.
What about you, Lucy?
I think I'd say, you're okay. You're lovely. You're okay. Yeah, don't let people put you down.
Yeah, keep
Let
going, I
yourself down.
think.
Don't be hard on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, keep going, I think would be mine. Keep going, you're okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Keep going. It's just like Dory. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of our, what was it called? What did we call it?
Speak up. The big
The
reveal.
big reveal.
Yeah, yes.
Revealing ourselves, our authentic selves through our voice.
Mm.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching us in the Silver Tent Live, if you're with us. And if you've not captured it all and you would like to view it again, it will be uploaded onto Silver Tent TV on YouTube. So Francesca will be downloading and uploading this. And in the Silver Tent YouTube channel, YouTube channel, you'll find all the back issues or the back productions of various conversations that we're having on Silver Tent TV. And so until next time, are we going to do it? It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from her. Oh, no, me.
And a goodbye from her.
For those two.
Well,
I want to thank everybody who's been on the chat. I've been kind of monitoring it, and just lovely comments. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a conversation that could continue. So we'll see where we go with this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, all of us. And we'll see you again real soon.
Yeah. Ciao, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Very good. Yay.
How does it go, Lucy? One more.
Very good. Very good. Yay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, I've done it. I've stopped
So we're
it.
no longer live.
Awesome.
We're live.
The recording stopped as well.
No,
You
not
okay?
yet.
You
Yeah.
okay, Lucy?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, here's a